Once you go to the MPNP online, if you are taken to this page, if you don't already have an account, then you can go to new user and you can create or register your account. Once you have registered an account, then you can enter the username that you have used and the password, then log into your profile. Once you're logged in, then you will see the different services that you can access. Go to the Manitoba Provincial Nominee Program. Now, this is a fake profile that I've created just to demonstrate the process. There's a disclaimer here. Please read that. An expression of interest is not considered an application to the MPNP. Only those candidates invited directly by the province from the EOI pool will be able to submit a full application to the MPNP for consideration as provincial nominees. Your EOI is valid for 1 year from the date of submission, and if you are not invited to submit an application by the time your submission expires, it will be removed and you will have to create a new one. So this profile that you have created is only valid for 1 year. If you have not received a letter of advice to apply or to submit a full application to the province, meaning that they have not drawn and invited you to submit a full application, then after 1 year you have to recreate this profile. You will be required to enter some personal details: name, birth date, email, marital status, gender, passport, expiry date, and then your country of citizenship. Then you are required to say how many family members are accompanying you to Manitoba and the language for communicating. Now there's a question mark here. You can expand that and it will tell you that eligible accompanying family members may include your spouse, common law partner, and dependent children. All eligible accompanying family members must be included whether or not they plan to join you in Manitoba. You can read the rest of the information. It's always important, especially when you are completing a form. Once you have completed your personal information, then you will see next. Once you hit next, then it will take you to more information. Now, this is where you are required to answer these pre-screening eligibility questions. And remember, make sure you are correct with the information that you have submitted, because if you get an LAA, which is a letter of advice to submit your full application to be nominated, every answers that you would have answered, you have to now prove. So it's important. So let's go through this together. Have you or your spouse previously been refused by IRCC based on A40 or inadmissibility or misrepresentation? If that's yes or no, you go ahead and you select that. Have you ever been removed from Canada? Now, in going through this, you realize that you have no choice in selecting the pathway. Based on the answers that you have supplied, the system will automatically tell you the pathway that you are eligible for. There's a twist, however, for persons who are eligible under the IES, where they are somewhat confused because they don't see where they got in their summary. When they got the summary PDF, they are not seeing where they were allotted the 500 points for the Manitoba in demand. And we're doing this process just so we can articulate why that is the reason. Have you received an invitation under the strategic initiative directly from MPNP? You select your answer. Make sure that they are correct. I am not currently working in Manitoba, but I have a formal job offer. You select the option that applies. I am not currently working in Manitoba, but I have a formal job offer. The pre-screening question, think about it as pretty much asking you questions to determine which of the streams that you are eligible under. Do you have an active express entry profile which was submitted to IRCC in the past 12 months? You answer yes or no. Now, for persons who answers no, lots of international students, what they do, if they did not have a profile that they had submitted, they submit their EOI, and if they receive a letter of advice to apply, and once they have submitted their full application after receiving the LAA, they then went ahead and create an express entry profile and then use a web form to submit to the MPNP that they would like to link their express entry profile to their MPNP. So that is also an option if at the time of submitting your EOI you never had an express entry profile. You must submit that web form for the linkage to happen before you are nominated by the province. If it is that you are nominated by the province without linking your express entry profile, then your certificate, your nomination certificate might just say that you cannot use or go the route of express entry. You'd have to go the route of the regular PR application, which is a longer process. So bear that in mind. What is your highest level of education? Go ahead, you will see the drop down. Select the one that applies. How many years of full-time work experience do you have in the past 5 years? Do not round up the total number of years. Make sure to expand by going to the question mark and read through. It says that you must calculate the total amount of full years of work experience you have completed over the last 5 years prior to the date you are submitting. So if you are submitting your EOI on June or July 8th, let's use July 8th, 2024. For the last 5 years up to that point, you must calculate the number of full years of work experience that you have completed. Not over the last 10 years, last 15 or 20 years. They specifically said over the last 5 years, just before submitting your application. Now, the MPNP only considered full-time employment, which is defined as at least 30 hours of work for the same employer over the period of 1 week. You should only count full years of work experience you have already completed. Do not round up your work experience. Example, if you have 2 years and 7 months of work experience, your answer should be 2 years. Important. You should only declare full-time work experience you have completed up to the date you are submitting your EOI, and it must not add any future work experience. If you complete an additional full year of work experience, you can always update your EOI profile with the new information and your score will be addressed or adjusted. Now, you can appreciate why they are so hell-bent on not having any misrepresentation, because it's a ranking system. If you misrepresent, and for example, say you had 5 years worth of work experience, this would have given you more points than if in fact you only had 3. So misrepresenting can help to push you up in the pool where you really were not eligible, and then other persons who were eligible may have not received the draw because you cheated. Whether you are ignorant of it, whether you were not aware of it or not, is irrelevant. Please make sure that in completing this form, you are reading everything. Take your time to complete the form so that you don't misrepresent. Select all connections to Manitoba that you or your spouse have. A close relative who is a permanent resident or citizen of Canada, is an established resident of Manitoba and has been residing. If that's not your reality, ignore that. Previous work experience of at least 6 months. If this is your reality, then you can check. Go ahead. It says you have this connection to Manitoba if in the past you have worked full-time for a Manitoba employer for at least 6 consecutive months. During the period of employment, you must have been authorized to work in Canada. If that's your reality, then you can check the box. Completed post-secondary education of 2 years or more. If you did not study for 2 years or more, then you can ignore that one. If yes, then you can check. Completed post-secondary education of 8 to 12 months in Manitoba. Now, there are some persons who may have studied for, say, 16 months. Anything less than 2 years, you have to still select this one, even if you, say, for example, studied for 14 months, 15 or even 16 months. It's still less than 2 years, so you have to select this one. A friend in Manitoba who is a permanent resident or citizen of Canada, is an established resident of Manitoba, has been residing in Manitoba for at least 1 year. So if you have a relative or a friend and that person is not currently supporting the settlement, meaning that another person going through the immigration process through MPNP or any other provincial nominee program, as long as that support person is not right now actively supporting another person to get their permanent resident status, and you have a friend who can do that, then you can go ahead and check that box. Which language test have you taken? If you have taken the SWO, then you can enter the test identification number here. And if you have taken the IELTS test, this would be your test report form number found in the bottom right corner. If you have taken the SWO, this would be your registration number found in the upper left of your test result. If you have taken the TEF, it is the attestation numero that is found at the bottom of the page. So it just depends which one of the tests that you have taken. Then you enter the identification number here, the test date, and then it says, do you have official test results indicating you have language proficiency? Go ahead and complete that. So I'm just completing a fake profile. So I'm just populating some information here. Do you have official, let me see. Do you have official test results indicating you have language proficiency in Canada's second official language at CLB 5 or higher? This has to do with, for example, if your second official language for the purpose of the MPNP is considered the official language of Canada, which is English or French. So if it is that English is your first language, then if your second language, official language test would have been French, or if French is your official language, then your second language would have been English. So if you have that, then you can go ahead and say yes. If not, then say no. What is your destination in Manitoba? Then they have a listing here. You can go ahead and select your destination. They have the different cities. So I'm just going to choose Winnipeg. Have you or your spouse ever visited or lived in another Canadian province or territory? If you have visited other places in Canada, then go ahead and say yes. It says visited or lived. So when you're supplying the full application, then you can expound on your visit or whether you have lived. So it's yes if you have traveled or visited or lived. If it's no, then you go ahead and say no. Have you or your spouse ever studied in another Canadian province or territory? You answer that. Have you or your spouse ever worked in another Canadian province or territory? Do you or your spouse have a close relative that is a permanent resident or Canadian citizen and currently resides in another Canadian province or territory? Now, if you say yes to this, then naturally it will deduct, I think, 200 points from your MPNP because they're looking for people who are intent on remaining in Manitoba and having a close relative in other provinces. To them, it means that you can simply leave to another province, and so you will lose some marks for having family members in other provinces. But at the end of the day, if that is your reality, you have to be truthful, because if you misrepresent any information, then it can come back to haunt you. Have you or your spouse ever applied to any other provincial nominee program other than the MPNP or a federal immigration program with an intended destination outside Manitoba? You answer that accordingly. Please enter the amount of liquid transferable settlement funds available to you. And let me expand this. It says all candidates must be able to demonstrate their ability to successfully settle in Manitoba as skilled workers. As a general requirement, every candidate should have at least 10,000 Canadian dollars plus 2,000 for each accompanying family member. However, if you read extensively, you will see where they say they will take into account if you are already in Manitoba and you're working, they can take into account your salary, but still it would be good for you to have some transferable funds available, that's settlement fund. Just add in 15,000 for this demonstration. Then I'm going to save and then go to the next. Once you go to the next, you will see forms and documents are not required. This is the expression of interest, and so you are not required to submit any forms or documents. Once you have received a letter of advice to apply or to submit a full application to the province, that is the time you are required to submit your documents to pretty much substantiate all the claims that you have made in the questionnaire. Go to next. You will see that there is nothing that needs to be completed. Here, all information entered, whether it's correct or not, it's for you to preview your summary before submitting. This simply means that all the questions were answered. There's no empty slots that you have. Then you go to next, then no documents are required, then go to next. And this is where you will see preview your EOI profile summary that you have just created. So before going through the declaration and then submitting it, it's best to preview, and then you will be required to, you should save it so that this can guide you when you receive your letter of advice to apply. You can refresh your memory as to what you had submitted in your profile. So once you go to preview the EOI, it will show you the summary of all the questions that you have answered. Now, the question that gets a lot of international students eligible under this stream, gets them a little concerned, is this one. What is your occupation? You will see 0000. Do not get panic over this. The system is used for all the different streams. This is how the MPNP officer knows that you are eligible under the international education stream. So you will not be seeing anything relating to this. You will not see where it asks you, it assigns the 500 points. You won't see that. You will see what is your current occupation, 000. It's okay. It's normal. If you are eligible under the international education stream, your score will not look like other person's score who might see 7 or 8 or even 900. You are treated differently. This is the fastest pathway to permanent residence through the MPNP. So do not be alarmed when you see 000 assigned to your occupation. Another thing, go through the form. If there's anything that you need to correct, you simply go back to your profile, and then you can go back to more information and change your answers accordingly. And then you can hit save, and then you generate or regenerate the summary just in case, so that you can save it. So you can always do that before submitting. Remember, what qualifies you to be eligible under the international education stream? 3 things. You must have studied and worked, offered a job in the same field that you have studied, provided that it is on the Manitoba in-demand list. And you can verify the list. I'll link it in the description. And you must have also completed a language test and have attained at least 7 in the different areas. That is it. We looked at the eligibility criteria. Again, let me see, the eligibility criteria for the international education stream, the career employment pathway. It pretty much is 1, you have to have graduated within the past 3 years from a designated post-secondary institution in Manitoba from a full-time program for at least 1 year. You must have had the CLB, that's the language benchmark, the Canadian language benchmark, at least 7, and you must have a full-time job offer from an eligible Manitoba employer, at least 1 year contract in occupation that is in demand. So once you go to the in demand, then you will see the different occupations and the different knock codes assigned. So that is how you determine your eligibility for each of the different streams, in particular the international education stream. All right, so once you have answered yes to those questions, then naturally you will be in that pool. Scroll down further, you will see your EOI results. This is where persons got a little alarmed, seeing only 400 and change. For the most part, once you fulfill those 3 questions, you will be seeing somewhere around 445, provided that you also have some connection, be it work or through friends or relatives. You would have gotten some points for that. As you can see, for the language proficiency, the maximum points that you can get is 125. Your ranking points will be according to the answers that you have supplied. There are different score sheets that explains how the points are assigned. If you did not have second language, then you would have gotten 0 for that. For the age, there's also something that you can see the different points assigned for age. Depending on your age, you get points for that as well. Work experience that you have over the last 5 years, there's also points for that. The maximum is 175. Bear in mind, if you are already in Canada, if they ask you for the last 5 years what your work experience is, you cannot say 5, because if you were in Canada for, say, for a year, then there's no way you could have had full-time employment over the last 5 years, and that be 5 years. What accounted for the time that you were in Canada and studying? And remember, if you're studying, there's no way you could be working full-time to meet the, especially since 2024. Formerly, but back in the days, the international students could have worked more than 40 hours. So you have to think about all those little things to not misrepresent any information here. For education that you have, depending on what you had said, there are points for that as well. And for adaptability, and adaptability comes in 3 different forms. It can be through connection, Manitoba demand, or regional immigration. And if you had used friend as a connection, then you would have gotten 100 points. This is where IES stream people are somewhat confused as to why they did not get the 500 points assigned for the Manitoba demand. No, guys, it's normal for the IES stream to not see this 500 here. It's normal. If this 500 was here based on the fact that you are in an in-demand job in Manitoba, then your score would have been 900, whatever the amount. Based on the profile that I have completed just now, it would be 945, and the maximum you can get is 1,000. So you can see how that would be so high and give you a better chance of being drawn in the pool. But guys, for the international education stream, it's normal to not see the 500 assigned. This stream is treated differently. It's more or less not necessarily treated like the skilled worker Manitoba or the skilled worker overseas. You won't see this 500 here. It's normal. Once you're eligible to submit, you are good to go. You will be getting your letter of advice to apply once you are eligible. Remember, this is the fastest pathway for permanent resident status in Manitoba. So don't be alarmed when you don't see the Manitoba demand 500 over here. It will tell the MPNP officer, based on this score here, that you're eligible under the Manitoba provincial nominee, the pathway for the IES. So don't be alarmed where that is concerned, and you can share it with your friends. I've searched and I've seen it on Quora, I've seen it on Reddit. Lots of persons panicking saying that they have not received that 500 in demand. It's normal. Okay, even if you should email the province, which does take a while sometimes for them to respond, they are going to ask you, did you say yes to this question, which is the field that you have studied? Do you have a job offer in the same field? And do you have the Canadian language benchmark 7 or higher? Provided that you have answered yes to those 3 questions, then you are eligible under this field, this stream. Any other points allotted would be based on the information that you have supplied. So if you have connection in Manitoba through friends or family, so that will help you with making sure that you're eligible under the stream, because you have to be eligible, and to make up your eligibility you need different points. But you will not see the Manitoba demand 500 even if you are in an in-demand occupation. That is how it is treated, because the EOI is for all the different streams. Just know that once you see this here, it means that you are eligible under the international education stream. So I hope that you have some clarity where that is concerned. Remember to save your summary before making your submission, because when you get that letter to submit the full application, it's good to see what you had said. Even though if you were honest and truthful, then it's the same information that you now need to justify, but it's good to have your summary to refresh yourself. So make sure to always save your summary before you submit. Now, once you have reviewed and you are ready to submit, then you will be required to, it's best to go through the declaration, because you are declaring that the information that you have provided either by yourself, or if you have a representative, which you don't necessarily need one, it's not a difficult process, is true, it's correct, and it's complete. I will provide sufficient credible supporting documents to substantiate this information in my application should I receive a letter of advice to apply. I understand that if I receive a letter of advice to apply to the MPNP, I will need to submit sufficient and credible documentation to substantiate the information I provided in my expression of interest. Misleading the MPNP may refuse my application or may revoke my nomination for permanent residence at a later date, and the $500 application fee will not be refunded. I have not consented to my representative, if applicable, to provide any false, intentionally misleading information or to conceal material facts. I understand that my EOI is not considered an application. The information I provided is for reference only. No nomination decision will be made based on these answers, and that only those candidates who receive a letter of advice to apply to the MPNP will be able to submit a full application. I understand that my eligibility or the points awarded for each factor may change as a result of a full assessment. I understand that my EOI will expire after 1 year, and if I have not received a LAA to apply, I will have to complete a new submission and be considered under the program. I have read, understood all the foregoing. I and my spouse, if applicable, accept the terms. You check and then you submit, and that is it. The video is a little long. If you have questions about this process, I'll be happy to answer those questions. Please leave your questions in the comments. Do give me a thumbs up on this. That would encourage me to do more videos like this. I know it's a lot, so if you have any other clarifying questions where this is concerned, please drop it in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you have received some clarity. See you in the next one.